Good morning and welcome to Rising. We've got a great show for you today. It's going to be a very long Tuesday because we have the vice presidential debate this evening. So we have to remain alert and focused and awake and sober in order to watch it.
Speak for yourself.
That will be a lot of fun. But CBS is going to be experimenting with a new way to do live fact-checking during tonight's debate in New York City between Ohio Senator J.D. Vance and Governor of Minnesota Tim Walz. And it's maybe just a little bit foolish, in my opinion. A QR code will appear on screen for long stretches of the VP debate. That's right, a QR code, those annoying things you have to point your phone's camera at, hoping it works, and scan the code. Now, when viewers scan the code this time, they'll be directed to the CBS News website, where about 20 CBS journalists will post fact checks of the candidates' comments in real time. I assume that anyone watching who wants to know what CBS journalists have to say about the debate can cut out the middleman and find their way to CBS.com without the help of a QR code. Now, CBS has said the moderators, Norah O'Donnell and Margaret Brennan, will focus on encouraging exchanges between the candidates and enforcing ground rules rather than doing the fact-checking themselves. I think that's good. The new move comes after many, including me, criticized the ABC moderators for interjecting far too much when Trump spoke during the last debate, but not doing the same for Kamala Harris. Tonight's debate is set to last 90 minutes with no studio audience, microphones left on throughout the event. The stakes are big for Vance and Walz, as this is the final debate on the 2024 schedule. There is no plans for Trump and Harris to debate again. Vance and Walz will both aim to paint the other as too extreme for the American people. Politico writes that Vance is expected to attack Walz on his far-left agenda, including his disastrous record on border security, being soft on crime, failures as Minnesota governor, including his handling of the Minneapolis riots following the killing of George Floyd, while Walz is expected to focus many of his attacks on Trump. Hot-button issues for the two candidates will likely include Harris's flip-flops, the Springfield, Ohio saga, and Vance's past remarks about Trump.
Meanwhile, the New York Times editorial board has just thrown their endorsement behind Vice President Kamala Harris. The editorial board's powerful headline reads, quote, "the only patriotic choice for president." And in the first paragraph, the board came out swinging, writing, quote, "it is hard to imagine a candidate more unworthy to serve as President of the United States than Donald Trump. He has proven himself morally unfit for an office that asks its occupant to put the good of the nation above self-interest. He has proved himself temperamentally unfit for a role that requires the very qualities, wisdom, honesty, empathy, courage, restraint, humility, discipline that he most lacks." The Times go on to say that the fact that Trump is not fit to be president should be enough for any voter who cares about the health of our country and the stability of our democracy to deny him re-election.
An unsurprising endorsement of Kamala Harris from the New York Times. I think that was probably one of the more expected endorsements of all time.
But I thought they stopped doing endorsements. I thought they were going to...
No, when did they stop doing endorsements?
They announced in New York that they're no longer going to do endorsements.
In the state of New York?
In the IAF. But
I remember when
all around.
They endorsed, one of their funnier endorsements was in 2020, they endorsed in the Democratic primary. Who did they endorsed, I believe, Amy Klobuchar and Elizabeth Warren.
Yes.
Like a dual endorsement of just those two people, two people who did not fare particularly well. Yeah, well, no, they agree on. I think they agree on some things. I think of them both as kind of antitrust, classic FDR Dem type people. I mean, you know more than I do.
I feel like Amy Klobuchar was a little bit more conservative. They wanted both sides.
Well, she was more conservative on like. Right, she was denied the VP slot because she was maybe slightly to the right on like whether there should be police, which was an embarrassing thing to think, I guess, as a Democrat at the time, or so the mainstream media thought, even though most people, including most Democrats, were never fully on board with the whole, in my view, that whole wave of...
Classically neoliberal, but she also, don't forget, had some issues with her staff where she was throwing things at them and they were quitting.
The salad forks, yeah.
Yeah, it was not a good look for a vice presidential pick. You want to go.
If you say so.
Yeah.
Anyway, things that annoy me, top of the list.
Let's hear it.
QR codes.
Okay.
Hate them.
Thank you.
Hate them. We can find commonality on that.
Definitely.
I love that for years, they've been saying, oh, this is going to catch on like wild. Everybody's going to love them. We have them all over Asia. Not in America, no. We don't need this. It takes longer to make it. I hate when this comes up on when you're trying to log into something on the TV and they're like, you can scan a QR code and it'd be easier to do it. No, it's not. Just let me do it here. Yeah. I don't want to do another device. I'm sorry, this is cranky old man corner right now, but it's
the menus,
very obnoxious.
That's the one that drives me crazy.
Oh, God.
The menus. I want a menu. Give me a printed menu. I know no one wants to pay for it anymore, but I even want pictures of my menus. I know it's very controversial.
No,
but
go off, Queen.
I really want pictures. You can make them fancy. They don't have to be like, the old-fashioned, like, crappy restaurants.
There's a restaurant near me where I live that I otherwise like, and I won't say it because I don't want to, get them, I don't know, to receive death threats or something.
Pizzagate.
But they for a while there were 3 QR codes for the drink menu, the appetizer menu, and the dinner menu. Like, this is just wrong. So anyway,
like
sorry.
a 95-year-old. Can you imagine every time you're with somebody who's a little older and not, how does this thing work? Or if you're in another country and you don't have Wi-Fi. And
so bad.
It's.
So this is a long digression from the point, but the point being that we don't need, like, people who want to hear how CBS feels about the remarks being made by the candidates, I think are already smart enough to just put cbs.com into their web browser or on their phone application and find it. Obviously, I guess it does no harm to put up a QR code, but I have a hard time believing that people are like, how do I get more information? Oh, thank God, a QR code, like a shining light from on high. I don't think so.
I think the other thing is the people who are going to go look for the fact-checking probably are the people who check out, whether or not someone's telling the truth.
Yeah, they have a copy of the New York Times.
They have, exactly.
Sitting.
But it drives traffic to CBS.com.
Maybe.
CBS.com, who we do not work for.
Yeah, we do not.
Go to our...
So I am glad, you're going to disagree with this, but I am glad that the moderators are not going to be doing the same kind of fact-checking that went on in the ABC debate. I thought it was too aggressive, and then it was blind to misstatements made by Kamala Harris. I know you will say that Donald Trump's volume of misstatements was higher. Fine. Even if I concede that, I don't think it excuses that they didn't correct her the 2 or 3 times she said something that was just not factually accurate. Now, in my ideal world, they wouldn't really do that at all. They can maybe they ask the question again, but facilitate and prompt the candidates to do the fact-checking, because it should be a debate between the candidates. It's not an interview one-on-one between the journalist and the candidate. Now, when that happens, I like to see really strenuous grilling. You saw that at the last debate where they were doing that as if that's what was going on. It was an interview of Donald Trump between David Muir and him, and aggressive questioning, and then it felt like 3-on-1 to me, which, a lot of conservative people were very understandably upset about.
Well, those are the conservatives. I mean, I think at the end of the day, if you're watching a debate and you still don't know who you're going to pick, maybe a little pushback helps. This is also a different beast. J.D. Vance is not Donald Trump. Donald Trump is an anomaly. He is hard to contain. Mm-hmm. He says whatever he wants. He makes things up on the spot, as we know. So does J.D. Vance, but just not at the same rate. And I do expect J.D. Vance to be a little bit more respectful of the moderators, maybe a little bit more. We don't know. We haven't seen him. He's good at debate. I mean, he's fluent in cable news. He's an attorney, of course. He went to Yale Law School. I think Tim Walz, I think he's great on TV, and I think he's very good off the cuff, but he has signaled that debates are not his strong suit, so...
Of the 4 people, Donald Trump, Kamala Harris, J.D. Vance, and Tim Walz, J.D. Vance is the one of the 4 who has done, by far, the most media this cycle since becoming the vice president, since being foisted into this important role. He has been willing to be grilled relentlessly by mainstream media. He's very practiced at it. He does a good job in those environments. So it's going to be a formidable challenge for Walz, I think. And also, Walz is going to try to make it about Trump, because Trump is, the one with the record. J.D. Vance has a record as a senator, but Walz has a record as a governor, as the chief executive of a state. So J.D. Vance can talk about those policies. He talks specifically about the police stuff. I would like to see some of the COVID policies aired, because I strongly object to the COVID policies of Tim Walz. I think that might be healthy to remind people of, but it should be interesting.
It should be interesting, and I think it's not just going to be about Trump, though. I do think they're going to bring up a lot about J.D. Vance's, questionable history. He tries to be the man that he wrote about in his book, but this is a man who worked in Silicon Valley. He was an investor in Silicon Valley. He's heavily backed by Peter Thiel. Peter Thiel is obviously a billionaire and very conservative-leaning, and he wrote the foreword to Project 2025. So as much as the Trump-Vance ticket wants to separate themselves from Project 2025, I have no doubt that you're going to hear from Tim Walz over and over talking about the details of Project 2025 and latching J.D. Vance to that idea book of this dystopian world that they somehow think the rest of the country wants to live in, the majority of the country.
Well, you don't need a QR code to watch our show, thank goodness. We've got a lot more to come talking about On Rising right after this. Stay tuned.